SMART24, driving business.
Back to SMART24 TV, and we are still having a conversation, a recap, a reflection on what transpired at the Renewable Energy Conference and Expo at Munyonyo Speak Resort last week. Now, for those that were not a part of us, we have brought you a special guest, as earlier said, for those that missed maybe the first session, that we have Caroline Aguti Mujisha from Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. She's the head of safety, health and environment there, and she's discussing with us so many issues pertaining to what we could have missed for those that did not have the opportunity to be a part of the conference last week. Now, as we continue with our delightful conversation, we are going to cater for the private sector people, those people with private businesses, those that did not have an opportunity to be a part. Caroline will be sharing with us some of the business opportunities that the Expo was able to provide, because as she said earlier, the Expo presented 33 countries that were participating in this conference. Now, this was a marketplace for businesses to showcase their products and services, which of course such areas or such platforms provide the opportunity to lead into collaborations, partnerships and investments in the renewable energy sector. So Caroline will be talking to us about the opportunities, the business opportunities that the private sector should have benefited from this conference. Caroline, I know that you have a business of your own and you have some, business practices that you're doing. But for the private sector in Uganda, which of course is also directly working with the Ministry of Energy, what business opportunities were at the conference that the private sector could directly tap into? And what do you think that they missed for those that were not able to participate in the conference?
Thank you. So really in terms of the private sector, because if the government of Uganda is going to progress, the investment has to be with the private sector.
That's right.
And the number of technologies that we actually displayed during the exhibition and the discussions in there enhance the participation of the private sector. We as a country are promoting clean cooking. And definitely that is an aspect where we can get into clean cooking, sale of clean cooking equipment. But also now that we are in the climate space, we can actually invest into the clean cooking business, but with a business mind of the carbon credits and under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So you find that you can be able to come and do investments in Uganda, you reduce the carbon emissions, and you can be able to get money out of that. So that is one area where the private sector can actually be able to invest. And for all the technologies that we have talked about in terms of e-mobility, you can actually focus on investing in e-mobility, and when you can use that actually to get carbon credits. So, but also there are aspects of mini grids. So the private sector can actually come and support government of Uganda to develop mini grids. The government has identified over 600 sites for mini grids. I know that during the conference we launched the energy access project on mini grids, but that is only for 100 or so sites. So we still have a number of sites where the private sector can actually be able to invest in. But also in terms of solar, the solar equipment. So the private sector can actually come in, and there are resources that are available within the ministry. You can be able to work with Uganda Electricity Credit Capitalization Company that is also working with the different banks, circles, so you can actually be able to get money to invest into the renewable energy space.
That's true.
So there are a number of technologies, and that is how the private sector can actually get involved in. You can either invest in the storage facilities or the smart grid. So all these are investments that the private sector can actually get involved in, but the fact that there are now financial resources that can enable the active participation of the private sector, this is very critical, because we have different partners like the United Kingdom, the EU, the government of Germany, Norway. All these people are giving us solutions in terms of financing. So we really need to focus as the private sector. But we also have now funds that are really targeting the private sector.
That's true.
So the private sector needs to take advantage of this such that they can get this money and be able to invest into renewable energy technologies, reduce the carbon emissions of the country, and together we can be able to foster the energy transition agenda.
Actually, I love, we had several rooms at the conference where people were discussing different policies, different areas of implementation. Some rooms, we had them launching their projects. So I think there was a lot of participation. But for what I want to bring onto your table, Carol, is what are those policies? What are those policy measures that were discussed? I know you weren't in position to be in all rooms to listen to all the policies that were put in place. But generally, on a general scale, what are those policy measures that the ministry, the National Renewable Energy Platform, can put in place to increase the adaptation of renewable energy in Uganda?
I think first and foremost we need to appreciate that Uganda now as a country has a Climate Change Act. And this Climate Change Act actually requires that the ministries, departments and agencies come up with their own climate change strategies and action plans. Even the district local governments should be able to have their climate change action plans. So the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development has developed the first climate change strategy and action plan in this country, in line with the Climate Change Act. And within this, we are doing a number of initiatives in the energy sector. We have a number of initiatives that we have proposed in the mining sector and in the oil and gas sector. So one of the things that we are actually focusing on is the aspects of fuel blending. So we want to see how we are going to get biofuels and we blend it with the fossil fuels such that we get a product that is towards renewable. And we are focusing on developing the blending legislation towards blending that will guide this country, and we are really towards the end. But you'll also appreciate that now we have reviewed the new energy policy, which was launched this year. And our energy policy is actually very ambitious. We are expecting that by 2040 we should have 52 megawatts of power.
By 20?
By 2040. So we really need to be working towards this as a country. So even when you see that we are focusing on ensuring that we are developing nuclear, the country really wants to ensure that we improve on our generation capacity.
That's right.
And during the conference, we presented our energy transition plan. And really in this energy transition plan, in the mix, we have all those issues of nuclear, geothermal, even the emerging issues in terms of green hydrogen, because the government is going to be focusing on our mining sector. So really the mining sector will need a lot of energy. And this is the space where we really need the green hydrogen. So as a country, we are now focusing on ensuring that we do feasibility studies to enable us to know the green hydrogen potential as a country. So we are also going to be focusing on developing our other sites, like Kiba, to actually ensure we increase on our generation capacity. But really the focus of our energy transition plan is on diversification, such that we don't say that now we are stopping the production of oil and gas, but we want to ensure that we blend in renewables into the production of oil and gas. But also within the activities of oil and gas, we are going to we are going to be focusing on aspects of reduction of emissions. So we shall not be doing flaring, we shall be deploying the most efficient technologies to ensure that our carbon emissions are actually low. So yes, the ministry has a number of policies. We now have the mining policy, we have the Mining Act, and with this we are actually promoting the green minerals. So we are really focusing on this, and the ministry is developing a number of these policies, and we are now also developing the building substance bill, because we want to see how we can be able to regulate the building substances.
That's true.
So with all this, the ministry is really focusing. We are also reviewing our petroleum policy to make sure that we embed in the aspects of energy transition, but also to embed in the aspects of climate change, such that we have clear strategies on how we're going to reduce our carbon emissions from the oil and gas sector.
Absolutely. And we also know that after such a conference, the ministry should be in position to have mechanisms for monitoring and evaluating the impact of the conference. And to me, I think, and of course, not only the impact of the conference, but also the outcomes of the conference. So I just want to understand, how are we going to be able to track the several recommendations, the several adaptation measures that were discussed, and the initiatives that were discussed during the event? How is the ministry going to be able to monitor and evaluate all these implemented recommendations and all these issues that were discussed? Is there a system that is going to help us track? So, because what we discussed over this conference was quite a lot. Carol, you know, we had so many discussions in different rooms, but we just want to understand, how are we going to be able to track all these key areas?
Really, the ministry has in place mechanisms. You now appreciate that we work under the program approach.
Okay.
So the ministry has 3 programs out of the 18 programs in this government. And each of these programs, in terms of petroleum, in terms of mining, in terms of energy, they have a working group. So definitely these recommendations are going to be taken by the working groups. And within these working groups, they also have the donors. So the report will be presented with the actions, and each action will be given to an action institution.
Okay.
And you'll appreciate that the ministry already has some projects which we can use to progress the implementation of some of these actions. So we normally also have our a forum where we are able to share the progress that the ministry has actually made. So there will be a forum where the ministry will be able to progress and indicate what progress we have actually made in terms of implementation of these activities. And we really track what progress we have made for each of those activities, and who can finance, and if it is in terms of involving the other partners, then we are able to really, the partners and the development partners in this case are actually able to come in and they guide how they want these activities to be actually undertaken. So the program approach is actually very important for us now, and it supports us to be able to implement these. But also you realize that we have a number of partnerships with the civil societies, with the universities. So some of these things, if it's in terms of capacity enhancement, I remember talking to one of the professors, and he said, Professor Kure actually said that he had to tell all the students on bioenergy in Makerere that for the whole of last week there were no lectures. They had to have their lectures at the conference.
Yes.
So we are going to be working with these different institutions to really see which of these aspects were capacity building related, and how are these different institutions also ensuring they're implementing them. So we shall have a forum where we shall meet all these people and see the cultural institutions, how have we progressed with these, the financial institutions. In terms of the products, how have the people, the different stakeholders been able to absorb the products.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember I was in one of the conference rooms, Carol, and one of the gentlemen from JZ said that if we are to make any progress in the renewable energy sector, then we need to focus on our attention on the household level. How do we start these conversations from the household level? What do you have to say about that, Carol?
Now the households, and that's why I'm saying that we again focusing on the aspects of gender. Because if you're going to go to the household, you certainly need to talk to the woman. And you also need to focus on the children.
Yes.
But also you'll appreciate that as a ministry, we may not be able to get to the grassroots very effectively. And that's why we are focusing on the aspects of partnerships. So we are working with the non-state actors to actually ensure we get to the grassroots, but also with the private sector, because then the private sector is able to get down there. But we are certainly implementing a stakeholder engagement strategy where we are able to disseminate the technologies that we have. So through that, we should be able to get to the grassroots through the training them to actually be able to promote some of these technologies as a livelihood option, where they can actually be able to improve on their livelihoods through getting the resources there. But you'll also appreciate that the ministry actually does regional programs. And the aim of this is actually to ensure that we get down to the local governments. And through this, then maybe the districts or the communities themselves are able to come and appreciate what technologies we are promoting and either buy them for their household use or start to develop businesses out of this. So we are certainly focusing on the households. That's why I clearly indicated to you that we are focusing on seeing how we work with the parish development model. Because then with the parish development model, we should be able to promote productive uses of energy. And that will enable us to actually go to the households. So those are some of the initiatives that we are doing to get to the households. But also dissemination and sharing of information as much as possible. We are really working with the media to ensure that we disseminate these technologies at the lower levels.
Absolutely, and I also know that, of course, we had so many renewable energy companies, of course, from the private sector that were also part and parcel of this conference. Now, I just want you to help me understand, what role do private organizations or do these renewable energy companies play when it comes to community engagement and social responsibility? Because we know these renewable energy companies, they are the ones that, the ones that are having projects that reach out to local communities, but what role do these companies, these private companies, play in social responsibility and also community engagement?
The private sector, they definitely do some corporate social responsibility activities to give back to the community where they work from. But I think what is very important that they disseminate the technologies, because then they take these technologies to the grassroots, and they also share information. But they also get involved in training these people. They also get involved in operation and maintenance. So really, it is very important that we give more, the private sector gets more involved and gets the resources that are available with the Uganda Electricity Credit Capitalization Company, and also the other development partners that now prefer to work with the private sector, because then they know the private sector can actually help to deliver these technologies to the grassroots, but can also create more businesses. So that's why under the Energy Access Scale-Up project, we are focusing on the results-based financing, where we tell the private sector, please go disseminate this technology, once you have shown us with evidence that you have reached this number of communities, come and get your payments.
Yeah.
So the private sector is certainly very important, and they are very critical in disseminating the technologies, but also creating awareness, but also giving back to their communities, because not at all times that they make a lot of profit from this. But as a ministry, we try to do we subsidize some of the clean cooking equipment that actually goes down there. And we have worked with this even with GIZ. They have given some resources, and through the World Bank projects, now we are going to be subsidizing the cost of the equipment when you sell at the village level. So that's again how the private sector gets involved in, because then they will be the ones to actually get this business and go and engage with the community, sell, come back and they get payment. Thank you.
Let's narrow back to your area of expertise, Carol, and that is, of course, you being the head of health, safety and environment. And are there some safety practices that were emphasized during the conference?
Really, the safety practices is really the safe use of the equipment.
Of course.
Because, you know, if you don't take into consideration safety, you can be promoting LPG.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't pay attention to the safety details on how to put on, switch off, and how to operate the LPG. Again, this is awareness that the ministry is actually focusing on. But also in terms of safety, even the process of making these different energy technologies, the safety considerations really have to be taken into, need to be in place. People need to have their protective gear. We need to have different policies as companies in place, such that we really, what is your health and safety policy as a company? Because you see, now it will be very difficult for people to take on products from a company that is not health and safety aware. Because in terms of sustainability, you need to clearly indicate what are your safety considerations, how are you taking care of your workers, but also what are these guiding principles, what are the codes of practice that these workers are actually signing off in terms of safety. And are you doing safety, are you doing a risk assessment of what your operations are going to be like to inform the type of the safety equipment that you're going to buy to actually protect your workers.
Absolutely. And Carol, I remember in the beginning of this this show, you actually mentioned that we had 33 countries participate in this conference. Were there notable collaborations or notable partnerships that were announced during the conference that actually could benefit the ministry and even Uganda at large?
I think one of the key things that was actually launched during that conference was the National Renewable Energy Grid, the National Renewable Energy Working Group, because I think this has been where the lacuna has been. So I think now that they have this Grid Energy Working Group, they should be able to progress. But of course, one of the big things that was also announced during that time was the Get Access initiative of the 30 million USD in terms of the mini grids. So I think that was very critical. But there are also a number of initiatives by the UK government in terms of access to finance and how they are going to be working with the government of Uganda to support initiatives in renewable energy. And the different development partners also made some commitments in relation to financing and the innovative financing towards renewable energy. Yes.
Absolutely. And this will just come on at a general scale, Carol. How do we, as Ugandans, how do we continue to, what measures can we put in place? If I say continue, it means like we've been doing it for a long time. Let me put it this way. what measures as Ugandans can we put in place to ensure that we continue to do sustainable practices? This is just on a general scale. What can we do to continue to ensure that we are committed to our sustainable practices as a country and as Ugandans?
I think really in terms of sustainable practices, I think we need to get into the habit of documenting. We need to do documentation of the different practices that we actually do and do lessons learned. And it is the good practices now that we can be able to promote.
Yes.
But if you have not documented, then there's no lesson learned that you're going to get out of this. So we need to be able to document, but also get the lessons learned and be able to replicate these lessons, the good practices elsewhere. But of course also one of the key things in terms of sustainability is partnership and stakeholder engagements.
That's true.
So we need to be able to continue with our stakeholder engagements and making sure we work together as teams, but also build synergies. But of course the other thing is we need to have sustainable financing products. So we really need resources to do the investments.
That's right.
So the aspects of working with the financial institutions to be able to develop products that are really suited towards renewable energy is very critical, but also continuing the engagements with the development partners, but also really continuously working with the different stakeholders, like we really involved the churches, the schools, the cultural institutions. So we need to continue working with them and have them on board and get their feedback, engage them, and if there are technologies that are supposed to be disseminated, these different stakeholders would be our first point of contact. Because if we really share the renewable energy technologies with the church institution, then the church will be able to disseminate that with to the Christians. If you went to the cultural institutions and the Kavaka is saying that this technology is actually very good, it helps us to improve on our health, instead of you inhaling the smoke from the kitchen, this one is going to reduce this, or if you went to Emorumor in Teso. So really we need to have the cultural institutions on board, yes.
Yes. So as we come to the conclusion of this very show, Carol, what are some of the key takeaways from this conference that you think will shape the future of Uganda, but at the same time, those key takeaways that you think will shape the future of our renewable energy sector in Uganda?
So I think really in terms of the renewable energy, the promotion, we need to be able to have the technology available, because the renewable energy technology is not also easily available sometimes.
That's right.
But again, it's also expensive.
Very.
So if we are going to ensure that this technology is available, that means we need to have sustainable financing mechanism.
That's true.
Where we have cheap capital to be able to invest into the technology, but also be able to disseminate it among the communities. So we need to come up with a business model that will really focus on ensuring that we increase our uptake in terms of the technologies, such that once we increase demand, that means the cost of the technology will also be lower. But also the key takeaway certainly is that we need to focus on technologies that are reducing emissions, because there's no shortcut anymore. We have to ensure that the technologies we promote are really efficient, and we should be able to measure how much carbon emissions we are actually reducing by promoting that technology.
Yes.
But of course the other takeaway is really stakeholder engagements, working together as teams. So again, it's also what is important, that we need the media. We need the media because then they have to share information. And the other takeaway is really sharing lessons learned and replicating them. Thank you.
And as we conclude, I promise we are concluding, One is that you're going to give us your rating, for this conference on a scale of 0 to 10. You're going to tell us how you rate it, and then you're also going to give our audience your conclusive remarks.
Much as I really indicated that the conference, we had attendees of 1,643.
Yes.
And people from 33 different countries attended. I remember we gave a present to the person who came from the farthest end, Nepal. But the rating I would give is 8, because we can't say that we can achieve everything. But we are hoping that next year we can be more organized, we can have more audience, we can disseminate the technologies better.
Yeah.
But my final word to the audience is that the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development has a number of technologies that they are promoting. But we have also worked with the different financial institutions, and we have resources that are available with Uganda Electricity Credit Capitalization Company that you can use to do investments. And in terms of building your capacity, in terms of saying building biogas, briquette making, doing solar dryers, the ministry has the capacity to be able to disseminate these.
Yeah.
But also now we are focusing on institutions, because then you realize that the amount of energy that is used in these institutions is actually bigger. So we are focusing on institutions, and we call upon the institutions to come to the ministry. But also we encourage people to embrace the use of solar, because the hybrid between solar and electricity is very important. Now we are also focusing on aspects of floating solar. So we need to focus on hybrid to ensure that we have sustainable electricity, but also we are focusing on aspects of developing smart grids and ensuring that our infrastructure is climate resilient.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. 8 out of 10, that is the rating that Caroline Aguti has shared with us when it comes to the energy conference that happened last week. 8 out of 10, I think that should be fair enough, for the evaluation of the conference. This conference brought upon very many ideas. It brought upon very many platforms, including collaboration opportunities, including partnership opportunities, not only with local partners, but also with international partners. Just like Carol shared with us today, we had over 33 countries participating directly and actively in this energy conference. Now, the third annual energy conference, of course, is one that presented quite a number of opportunities to Ugandans. For those that missed this week, we shall continue to share with you some of the experiences that we had over this conference, which I will continue to share with you some of the side events that were at the conference, which I'll even bring to you some of the exhibitors that were also able to be a part of this conference. But also, we shall also continue to bring to you business opportunities and also those areas of investment for those private sector people that they could tap into and see how best can they continue to upscale their businesses. Now, for those that have been watching us tonight, we cannot thank you enough for being a part of this show. We saw it fit enough to do a recap and reflect on what happened last week during the energy conference. And today we were very blessed to have Caroline Aguti Mujisha from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, leading health, safety and environment, to share with us some of the discussions that were at the conference. She was able to share with us some of the outcomes. She was able to reflect on the business opportunities. She was also able to reflect on the technology advancement of some of the projects. She talked about e-cooking, clean cooking, which is very important. That's where now Ministry of Energy is really focused on. She talked about community engagement, how we need to involve the city's society organizations. Even she talked about the household level. How do we reach out to the household level? But at the same time, she also emphasized capacity building, which is very important when it comes to contributing to a more skilled workforce in the energy sector. So for those that have been watching us tonight, thank you for being a part of this program. We shall be with you tomorrow to continue to bring you more insights of the Renewable Energy Conference. Have yourself a very good night.
SMART24